Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. What I have come today to discuss is the subject of the lofty goals of pluralistic societies and to examine whether or not these are often met in reality. E pluribus unum. There is a statement so often seen on all U.S. currency that quite simply so often is not true. Of many, one. But are we really? United States of America. Really? Are we? Why does every major American city have separate and distinct ethnic districts? It surely was not set out that way by the city planners, was it? Chinatown, Little Italy, the Polish district, etc. From our nation's founding, it was largely Western, Central, and Northern European peoples who took over and populated the North American colonies. When they came, they largely dispersed to common regions. English and Dutch to the northern colonies, Germanic peoples to the central areas, and Irish and Scottish immigrants went south. Now these are broad generalities, but largely hold true. When those started bringing people of African ethnicities over, it was almost exclusively to the southern colonies due to the nature of the work being done there and the cruel nature of the slave trade. Certainly people of all ethnicities ended up moving and relocating to other areas, but overwhelmingly they tended to move with like people groups. If in fact USA were of many, one, would it matter a bit if a person of German heritage relocated to another neighborhood, city, or state that was majority people of African heritage? It most certainly should not, but the truth shows that it does. Now add to that mix the divisive ramblings of that infamous race baiter-in-chief, one Barack Obama, and you get what we have seen over the past 15 years or so. Either you get actual riots by supposedly downtrodden people of specific ethnic groups against supposed and often imagined injustices heaped upon them, or the ultra-liberal corporate propaganda machine certainly does everything within its moneyed powers to paint it as such. Either way, you have entire cities and urban areas gutted, looted, and otherwise destroyed, all in the name of quote-unquote racial justice. Now, before you all cry racist on this puppet, think about this, my viewers. How many nations are in the world, in fact, purposely pluralistic? I can count them on two hands. Why is this the case? Have you ever stopped to consider this? Look for a moment at the United Kingdom. In more recent times, they have happily opened borders to people from myriad other nations. How exactly has that all played out? Multiple riots have taken place there over the decades between people groups of various ethnicities. Great Britain also has its fair share of native peoples not accepting immigrant groups well at all, along with the immigrant groups not assimilating themselves to cultural standards and norms well at all. Inevitably, the British government ends up passing mandates that attempt to minimize these skirmishes that have little to no effect on either the frequency or severity thereof. Travel, if you will, to modern-day China. This is a nation rife with what people like to term quote-unquote racism. What you will find in this large Asian nation is a general intolerance for certain ethnic groups. In fact, you will find restaurants with "No Filipinos" signs posted on the front door. Additionally, people of African ancestry are largely not accepted and largely regularly targeted by the communist government for deportation on trivial charges. Consider for a moment that hotbed of ethnic battles, South Africa. A nation probably pointed at the most by other nations as the worst of the offenders in the multicultural wars. While it is easy to focus on the infamous South African government and the cultural policy of apartheid that was abolished in the 1990s as the root of all that ails this nation, one also would be completely foolish to not also look elsewhere within the nation for core issues at work in the battles that continue to rage to this very day. Take a look at African National Congress, the leading and basically only political party within the South African nation. Its youth league leader openly calls for the killing of South Africans of European ancestry solely based on their skin color. Why would a civilized individual call for such a thing? Have you ever observed an infant in the arms of its mother? Watch one sometime, especially in the presence of people of other ancestral genealogies. What you will in fact witness is the young child crying when those other people approach. In 2018, an American Christian missionary named John Allen Chow decided he was going to attempt to reach the tribal people of North Sentinel Island off the coast of the Indian subcontinent with the gospel of Jesus Christ. After retreating quickly on his first attempt under raining arrows, Mr. Chow went back the next day and was promptly killed. What do we make of all this, my loyal viewers? Is it really possible to train people to go against their observable and perhaps even inborn instincts and accept people of other cultures, traditions, and skin colors? Of course it is, because we have seen it accomplished for millennia, but at what cost? You see nations like France struggle against the tide on this issue almost monthly. In June of 2023, massive riots ensnared France after an Algerian teen was shot and killed by police. immigrants not assimilating to the French culture and/or French not treating them well, at least in their perspective. People of Islamic descent historically do not assimilate well at all. Rather, they tend to want to conform their newly adopted societies that they are guests in to their strict norms. If you do not approve of the national and local customs of a religion or a particular nation, then why do you choose to emigrate there in the first place? A subject for another video entirely, to be sure. The European nation of Poland has established an immigrant policy of no Muslims allowed, period. Is there a solution? Perhaps, and it will not sit well with today's modern progressives. Perhaps after millennia of struggling to force multicultural social experiments to somehow, and at any cost, work, we leave well enough alone and allow people of different and varied ethnic backgrounds to stay with their own if that is what they like. Face facts that humans just seem drawn to their own kind naturally, and that intermixing these seems to have mostly adverse consequences. Where is the harm in admitting that truth after all is said and done? Back to the topic of Pluribus Unum. In the United States, public schools and universities began quote-unquote racial integration in the 1960s, close to over 60 years ago. There still remains great doubt regarding the efficacy of this and exactly what was attempting to achieve overall. Put teachers of European ancestry in front of a classroom full of students of different ethnicities, and you will often see that the teachers ridiculed, mocked, sometimes threatened, and otherwise spat upon. Now some of that behavior probably is learned, but I would also offer that some of it might just as well be inborn. Can we now say after nearly 60 years that people of quote-unquote underprivileged ethnic groups are better off, and to what metric is better off being substantially determined, than before school integration began? Can we say that they are, after all of this, better educated? Perhaps, but perhaps also not. The main reason I say that is that the American public school system is largely broken these days, and all you have to do is look at the vast number of teachers quitting to realize that. Now, my viewers, after taking a few minutes of your time and having stated quite a few facts regarding this topic, I am firmly led to say that E Pluribus Unum, in this puppet's own humble opinion, does not work. Largely so. Maybe in some instances. Do with that information what you will, but I am also strongly suggesting that tax monies are far and away better spent on anything besides integration and immigration efforts, no matter which nation is being discussed. Good night and sleep well.